And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Governor Tina Kotek. Throughout her professional career, first as an advocate for those in need, and then as a state legislator and Speaker of the House, Governor Kotek has been a leader who puts people first and has the drive to get real results for Oregonians. Please welcome Governor Tina Kotek. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm your governor, Tina Kotek, in case you didn't get that note. What'd you think of the video? Thank you, Wyden and Kennedy. Wow, this is a big place. You know, it's absolutely overwhelming and exhilarating to see so many people here today. The collective optimism and hard work of this gathering feels amazing, and I'm really glad to be here, so thank you. There's one person who can't be here today, and that's Dan McMillan, CEO of The Standard, who you just heard from in the video. Dan has been my partner in marshaling the energy of community, business, and elected leaders towards solutions for Portland that you will hear a whole lot about today. He sends his regrets and wants you to know that the only thing he would miss this for is his daughter's college graduation. I think we'll give him a pass on that. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dan and the entire team at The Standard who have been with us every step of the way. Thank you to the folks at The Standard. So let's talk about Portland, and let's talk about progress, because I think we're having a moment. Times of crisis can lead to a desire for drastic change, to tear down and rebuild again, and to overlook the progress that we've made in favor of something different. But when I look at this city, when I look at the leaders before me, what I see is potential. I see momentum, a fortitude to act. We have come this far, and we're beginning to see what's on the other side of our challenges. And that is precisely the moment when you keep going and push even harder. That is the moment we are in. I know that many Oregonians have been frustrated over the last few years, whether you live here in Portland or somewhere else in the state. I've been frustrated too. Sometimes turning on the TV, looking up at billboards around the city, or checking out news stories feels like reading an obituary of Portland, written by people who never truly knew it at its best, defining it by its worst. The truth is, Portland was never Portlandia, particularly for people living on the margins. Lack of affordable housing, poverty, racism, violence, and substance abuse have been issues in the city for decades, like most American cities. However, these issues have become more prevalent during and after the pandemic. The human suffering has been at a scale that we cannot afford to normalize or downplay. Whether you are sleeping on the street, struggling with an addiction, a nonprofit who is short-staffed, or a business owner whose employees don't feel safe coming into work. It's been a tough few years, and we all deserve so much better. So now let's talk a little broader about all of Oregon. At last year's Business Summit, I made a promise to visit all 36 counties in my first year in office and called it the One Oregon Listening Tour. I knew early on that my approach to this job was to lead by listening to people. Just last week, we visited our 35th county of the year, and we'll reach our 36th county before the year's end. Without fail, when we talk about the tour, People ask me, what has surprised you most about visiting all of Oregon? Well, I have lots of stories from the road, many memorable conversations. One thing that popped up time and time again was the shared desire for Portland to be successful. In every part of the state, I heard consistently a clear understanding that the city is Oregon's economic engine. People around the state believe in Portland, and they have high hopes for this city. My conversations with the Oregonians have reminded me that if we allow ourselves to be defined by our hardships, then we lose sight of who we are and what we can become. Many of Portland's challenges are not unique. What sets us apart is how we are working to solve them, right now, together. The solutions are not on the shoulders of the community or government or business alone. It's on all of us to solve things together. That is what we set out to prove less than 4 months ago, in partnership with Dan McMillan and the members of the Portland Central City Task Force. And today, our homework is due to you and to everyone who cares about this city. So unlike you, I raise an eyebrow at the idea of another task force being part of any real solution. But in August, when Dan and I convened a group charged with helping Portland and its comeback, we took a bet that if you put people in a room from different disciplines and life experiences to solve a shared problem, you can leave with concrete solutions. And I believe we've won that bet. We came up with 10 concrete action items focused on the next 6 months that, if you've been following your feed, were released publicly for the very first time at 10 a.m. this morning. And along with a long-term vision for Portland's success and new partnerships to help make that change happen. I want to thank the incredible group of individuals on the task force, more than 50 people who came together. And there were 120 people who participated in the committees, and there were thousands of people who contributed their thoughts online, and we had more than 20 listening sessions. To the task force members who are here, who are listening as well, you showed up with 2 weeks' notice and committed to 4 months of intensive work. Thank you. In true Portland style, we did not agree on everything. We could probably spend another 4 months getting every word right. And there was fierce debate. And that's the beauty of Portland. It's a city worth fighting for and getting right. You'll get to hear a few words from the task force leaders today, some of them who will be on stage. They're going to share a vision for Portland's next chapter. Everyone on the task force had to adhere to one core principle. Don't dwell on the past, apply its lessons to the future. And that is what today is all about. Now, I would ask for a warm welcome to 2 leaders who played a pivotal role in the task force and who are critical to the success of many of these recommendations. Multnomah County Chair, Jessica Vega Pederson, and Portland Mayor, Ted Wheeler.
Thank you so much, Governor Kotek. I appreciate the chance to share the stage with you this morning, along with Mayor Wheeler. And I am grateful to this incredible audience, to all of you for being here and for caring so much about our city, our county, and our state. We know that the biggest concerns of people living in Multnomah County and those spending time in our central city are homelessness, lack of affordable housing, addiction, and supporting those people living in crisis on our streets. Some of you may see today as a milestone, having the mayor, the governor, and I all on the same stage talking about our city. But for me, this is really about the culmination of a year of the three of us working together to address these urgent issues with partnership and coordination. The Central City Task Force gave us a critical opportunity to bring more people into that work and collaborate across local, state, and private sectors to develop tangible goals that can keep us all accountable and focused. That has also been the most important work of the county from the moment I stepped into this office in January. My priorities from that first moment have been moving people off the street into safer, more stable places now. That is why just this fall, we added funding to open or sustain 475 shelter beds across Multnomah County this year. This includes places for families, people in recovery, people who have been on the street far too long. And these investments partner with the state and the city of Portland to leverage resources to take urgent action now. This also includes making the shelters we have more effective by adding case management, peer supports, and housing placement rental assistance. It also means expanding day services across Multnomah County, so people who have nowhere to go during the day except sidewalks, parks, and streets get services and connected to care. My second priority is keeping people housed so they don't become homeless in the first place. The data is clear. We know that prevention is cheaper and smarter than trying to get somebody back into housing, which is why we funded $10 million in homelessness prevention and eviction legal defense to increase the services people need when they are on the brink of losing the safety and stability of their homes. And we've also made sure to focus on vulnerable populations with investments in culturally specific services for and by these communities. My third priority is expecting and pushing for more affordable housing. We truly need affordable units now, and we need units in development, which is why we recently partnered with Commissioner Carmen Rubio to triple the Portland Housing Bureau's most recent funding opportunity and directed $18 million to the development of 400 affordable housing units. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. I also want to stress that all these more recent investments build on the core services we made possible in the budget that we passed in June, including 2,500 beds to keep people safe on and off the street, $61 million in rental assistance and housing case management, and a continued focus on equity, which is a key component of the goals of the Supportive Housing Services measure. I will say that one of the most powerful outcomes from the task force, outside of the recommendations that I'm here to share with you, is the opportunity to strengthen relationships, eliminate silos, and define a unified vision to address our homelessness and housing crises. Because we cannot do this work, and we will not be successful in this work, unless we're working in lockstep with the state, with the city, and with the many governmental, nonprofit, and private sector partners whose work intersects and informs our response. The better and more successful our partnerships, the better position we'll be to implement and maximize the work that is already underway and the plans that we're putting in motion now. I do want to be clear that the recommendations we're sharing this morning are very provisional and should be viewed in that light. While I appreciate the process that we're going to get to today, nobody, not even of those of us who were very close to the process, had eyes on the entire set of recommendations until a few days ago, which is why we'll be looking carefully at them and continuing to be in dialogue, especially with those communities most impacted by these recommendations, to consider what and how we implement from here. As the chair of the Task Force Homelessness Committee, we put in hours of work to make sure what we put forward is measurable, achievable, and will make the biggest impact in this crisis. I appreciate the power of diverse voices and experiences at the table, and we went through healthy conflict and extensive dialogue to resolve critical issues. I'm pleased to share the housing and homelessness recommendations with you today. First, increase safe and accessible options for unsheltered people. There are hundreds of unsheltered people in the Central City who lack safe places to go during the day, and we must fix that urgently and strategically. The second, expand Central City's homelessness shelter capacity. In this area, our top priorities are both increasing the number of shelter beds we have and the flow of people through our shelters and into housing. The 3,000 shelter beds we're investing are much more valuable if the time that the people spend in them is short. And that's why we have made new investments that our partners have long asked for in wages for workers doing this work and in the support services that people need to get on their feet and back into housing. Our third recommendation is to address, especially at the state level, the lack of capacity in our behavioral health system. The system, yes. So I recently went to Portugal, and what I saw there was a system that truly was person-centered. Sanctions aren't imposed on addicted users who undergo treatment, and there is work across the systems to reduce drug use, prevent addictive behaviors, and decrease dependencies. That is why the system that we need in Oregon is about more recovery, with the state taking the lead in funding and opening spaces. Top priorities that came from our committee include residential treatment capacity, supersiding of residential and secure residential facilities, and more adequate resources for treatment linked to recriminalization of possession. Ideally, the amendments to Measure 110 will focus funds on creating more treatment, stabilization, and detox opportunities. We have recommendations that are all about increasing coordination and long-term stewardship of our multi-jurisdictional approach to solving this problem. And that leads me to an announcement that I'm pleased to share today. Last week, the mayor and I rolled out our plan to extend and enhance our intergovernmental efforts on housing and homelessness. Our intergovernmental agreement is set to expire in 6 months, and we've been working intensely to develop a new comprehensive approach. This framework dramatically expands our coordination of our homelessness response system across our respective departments and bureaus, including our healthcare partners, and gets us aligned in dealing with the crisis people are experiencing on our streets. At the heart of these new agreements is the establishment of a homelessness response system that includes joint goal-making, strategic formation, and oversight of the larger system of care. There are 3 keys to effectively creating and implementing this response system. First, key performance metrics to assess the work of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. This includes identifying a baseline number of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in January of 2024. We are setting bold new goals of attainable outcomes that we are going to be able to measure. A 50% reduction of those living unsheltered by December 31st, 2025. We are committed to reductions in racial disparities in our homeless population, coordination to increase the exits from shelter into housing by 50%, and a system to ensure that 75% of people housed in permanent supportive housing are still there in 24 months. And thirdly, we are setting up a truly coordinated approach that makes homelessness the priority across a system of jurisdictions, providers, and programs. Because the impacts of homelessness are felt across many areas of our work, from unsanctioned encampments to our first responders to the healthcare and justice systems, we need coordination across all of these systems. And this approach is going to do that for the very first time. It will make a difference in our central city, where the problems are acute, but also throughout all of Multnomah County. I do want to finish today by saying one thing. A thriving central city seems to consist of 3 things. First, office workers, and it is my hope that our business sector will step up the efforts to bring more workers back into our downtown core. Second, we need local residents in our downtown, which is why state funding for the development of affordable housing remains on my list of priorities to help our downtown. And lastly, we need visitors, which is where this county is stepping up to help. Last Friday, I announced with my colleague, Commissioner Lori Stegman, that the county will voluntarily redirect $12 million in tax revenues paid by visitors to support investments in cultural events, art venues, and the promotion of this great city that we all deeply love. Because we all know that it is time to love Portland again. There are many of us who never stopped loving Portland, but we want everybody to feel that love. And we have to be sharing that story throughout our downtown core. So I am glad that we are going to be hearing from more people on the task force committees later, but right now I'm very pleased to turn the podium over to Mayor Ted Wheeler. Thank you.
Thank Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking you all for being here. I want to acknowledge a couple of groups that are here. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you who showed up this morning. That's a sign of love for our state, for our community, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and be part of the process of our ultimate recovery. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues on the Portland City Council who I see here. I see Commissioner Dan Ryan here. I believe Renee Gonzalez and Carmen Rubio and Mingus Maps are here with us this morning. I want you to know, as a council, we don't always agree, but this is the best city council I've ever worked with, and we are committed collectively to the recovery of this city. And I also want to acknowledge mayors that I see in this audience. I look around and I see a lot of my fellow mayors. I want you to know that we collaborate across this state. Republicans, Democrats, big city mayors, small town mayors, urban, rural. We are all on the same page with regard to the recovery of this state. I want to thank my colleagues from around the state for being here today. And last but not least, this is an add-on, I want to thank these young people for being here in the very front. Thank you for being here. I think it's really important that we have the next generation here because frankly, we're talking about them and we're talking about the community that they are going to inherit. And it is mightily on my mind that we give them a clean, safe, workable, vibrant community. And so I really appreciate you young people hanging with us this morning. Governor, I want to thank you for bringing this task force together and the Oregon Business Council for bringing us all into alignment. Look, we all want the same thing. We want this city and this state to recover, and the only way we can do it successfully is through collaboration. We have to work together because we don't individually hold the keys to success. We all have part of the solution. And so, Governor, you're right. We have to come together and make this work. I want you to know that I appreciate the work of the task force and its many committees. And I enthusiastically agree that the issues facing our city and our state require us to come together. There's a role for all of us, the federal government, the state government, the local government, and importantly, private sector leadership. So thank you for providing us all with this forum here today. I also don't want to get lost in the details. The fact that the city of Portland is taking many concrete actions to provide leadership. We've taken action after action after action to address public safety, homelessness, livability, and economic recovery issues. All of these recommendations that are being made by the task force today are consistent with our Central City Recovery Plan. It is our playbook, and I'm pleased to see that these recommendations leverage the work that we're already doing. I encourage people to visit my website to see what that Central City Recovery Plan includes, and you will be very happy to see that we are in complete alignment. Let's talk about homelessness. I've made it clear that my goal as the mayor of the city of Portland is to make it so that it is not necessary for anyone to sleep in an unsanctioned camp anywhere in the city of Portland. As we achieve that goal, we also have to ensure that we're providing humane alternatives for people, including behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, public health services, job training, whatever it takes to get people off the streets and help keep them off the streets. That's what we're going to do. Over the last 6 months, the city has created over 500 new shelter beds through our new temporary alternative shelter sites and through our existing Safe Rest Village program. I want you to know that these aren't just campsites. For the first time, as people come into these situations, they are being connected with a navigator. They're being directed to behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, or other types of services that people need individually, tailored individually, to help them get off the street. We now have 184 people in our first task site. It is filled to capacity, and just in the last few months, dozens of people have gone through the programming, through the case management, and have been navigated to housing. This model works. And I'm pleased that the task force recommendations suggest continued support for the expansion of this model. And I want to thank the county, Chair Vega Pederson, on behalf of the county and all of the county commissioners for investing $24 million in our first temporary alternative shelter site. I also would like to acknowledge what the chair said about the new intergovernmental agreement with the Joint Office of Homeless Services. This is a huge step forward for both of our governments. And I want to thank the governor for $6 million through the first round of Oregon all-in funding that supported the city's temporary alternative shelter site. I want to thank you for that. We need continued support. With regard to public safety, I want you to know that this is a top priority for my administration. We are hiring new police officers in the city of Portland, and we are being very successful. We have hired 261 new personnel over the course of the last year. We have relaunched foot patrols in downtown Portland. We have developed a new partnership in alignment with the governor and the Oregon State Police, where state patrol officers and Portland police officers work hand in glove on a downtown bicycle patrol, and it's already been very effective. My colleagues on the Portland City Council and I passed $6.4 million in funding for private security in the downtown core. And we continue to work with private sector partners on a myriad of different programs, including the Downtown Clean and Safe Initiative. And we will double down. And with the efforts that have been put in by this task force, we will be able to leverage the work we're already doing and make it even better. And I thank all of you who served on the task force. I also want you to know that there is positive news. We tend to dwell on the negative. We tend to hear about the negative, and frankly, a lot of the reporting tends to be negative. But we are already seeing the recovery. We're seeing the turnaround. Gun-related homicides are down 27% year over year as the end of October, down 5% over the last 3 years. And I want to thank those members of the Portland Police Bureau who serve on the Enhanced Community Safety Team and the Focused Intervention Team programs we established in 2021 to intervene and prevent and investigate gun violence. They are having a marked, measurable impact, and it's something we should all be proud of. As the governor said, new deadly drugs like fentanyl and P2P meth are far more potent than their predecessors, and they are wreaking havoc on our streets. And it's important that one of the proposals of this task force is to support a statewide public use ban to help our public safety partners address the drug problem on our streets. I support it. The task force supports it. The governor supports it. So let's get it done. Livability is important too. Improving livability continues to be a top priority for my administration. Litter and graffiti and whatnot. Over the last year, we cleaned up over 300,000 square feet of graffiti through our new Portland Office of Environmental Management, sometimes called PEMO. PEMO has added lighting and other infrastructural improvements that help improve public safety in our streets and frankly make our streets appealing to the public. Their work has lit 75 blocks, expanding to 1,000 trees in 6 downtown parks, much of which, not all of it, but much of it is focused on the central city. And of course, we need to keep cleaning our city. And I am very happy with the task force recommendation to add $20 million to the pot to help ODOT clean up the state highways that run through our city. This is an urgent need. I'm very happy that the task force agreed this is an urgent need. I'm pleased that Governor Kotek is willing to champion this and push this through the legislature, and you will have my undying support for all of that. I've also asked that all levels of the public sector to refrain from adding any additional taxes or fees. And I support the recommended moratorium that is offered here as part of this report. I want you to know that the city understands the economic imperatives for business. We stepped up and we provided a first of its kind business incentive tax credit to businesses who either sign leases or recommit to leases in the central city. We're also creating 2 new tax increment financing districts to help spur investment in the central city. And one of those districts is squarely in the central city. And we're always welcoming suggestions for improvement. We welcome any recommendations that you have, and I encourage innovative solutions and partnerships from the business community. I'll finish by saying this. Since I have you all here and you're a captive audience, there are things that the business community can do that are not reflected in the task force recommendations. First and foremost, you can return to work. Thank you. At the City of Portland, half of our employees worked throughout the pandemic. They turn dials, they fix infrastructure, maintain our roads, they're public safety first responders. Half of them worked throughout the pandemic and still do. The other half, we worked with their labor leaders to negotiate a deal whereby they come in 20 hours per week. What we have learned is that it improves collaboration, it improves communication, and it improves productivity. It is good for business for people to be able to work together in teams across different service areas. But it also has the ancillary benefit of activating our downtown core. It helps commercial and retail enterprises. It helps restaurants. It helps to improve the situation on our streets. So I am encouraging all of you to join the City of Portland in bringing your employees back. You don't even have to be heavy-handed about it. It doesn't have to be a mandate. It can be incentives. It can be offering opportunities for advanced learning. It can be bringing people together for social occasions. But encourage your employees to come back to work. And I want to second what the governor said earlier in her remarks. Look, if we're trying to market our city, if we're trying to lead the comeback, if we're trying to create a narrative that is positive, that turns the tide on the reputational damage this city has suffered over the last several years, then why on earth would anybody in this room fund a program that puts building-sized billboards throughout our downtown that says homelessness, increased crime, drugs are a scourge in our city? Nothing tells me we've lost more than when a group of out-of-town convention advocates stands in front of one of those billboards and takes a selfie. How is that helpful? It's not. So let's take our dollars and let's invest in positive messaging, or at least, can we please invest in accurate messaging? As I said, crime across the board, not in all areas, but in most, is down. And finally, please support this task force's efforts around a statewide ban on the public use of drugs, so that cities can reclaim our streets and our sidewalks and our public spaces. I appreciate, Governor, everything you have done to bring us together. There's a lot of momentum. I look forward to continuing to work with you to fill out the details. And I want you to know that on behalf of all of us at the City of Portland, we stand ready to lean in. We stand ready to work with you. We stand ready to champion any cause that you believe will help us recover our community, because that's where we are headed. We are not delving in the past, we are heading to the future, and your report recognizes that. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.